Welcome back everyone to another lesson with me, Mr. Duclos. Today we are going to continue our lesson on fractions, and it is day 2 of comparing fractions. Let's jump right in and see what we can do. So our objective today is to find common units or a number of units to compare two fractions. And what I have in front of us are 3 problems for us to get started. So the first one says 1/3 and 1/6. Now we need to get comfortable with looking at fractions in both word and number form. So first, let's turn 1/3 and 1/6 into our pure number fractions. Well, 1/3 is 1 over 3, and 1/6 is 1 over 6. Now I'm going to draw 2 rectangles, and they're going to be equivalent. That means the same size. I'm going to do that so we can compare 1/3 to 1/6. And because I'm drawing it, they're not going to be perfectly the same size, but we can still pretend that they are, because it's going to be pretty close. So there's my first one. And there's my second. So pretty close to being perfectly equivalent rectangles. On the first one, I'll break into thirds. And on the second one, I'm going to break them into sixths. And then I'll label. And compare. 1/3 looks like it's definitely more than 1/6. And so I know that 1/3 is more than 1/6. But I also want us to just kind of think about that and think about it rationally. If you had a cookie and you were going to break that cookie up, if you broke it into 3 pieces, each piece would be bigger than if you broke it into 6 pieces. So 1/3 is always going to be bigger than 1/6. Let's try another one. Down here we have 2/4 and 2/6. So again, I will draw, or first thing I'll do is 2/4 is 2 over 4. And 2/6 is 2 over 6. Now again, I'll draw my pictures to help out. So the first one, and the second one. And again, I know they're not exactly the same size, but they're pretty close, and we can definitely use them. The first one I'm going to break into fourths. We have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4, and then again sixths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'll label it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, so 2/4 is all of this and all of this, while 2/6 is only this and this. So we can clearly see that 2/4 is more than 2/6. And again, I want us to think about that just in terms of the real world. If I have a cookie, I break that cookie into 4 pieces, and I give you 2 of them, I'm giving you half the cookie. I'm giving you a lot of cookie. But if I break that cookie up into 6 pieces, and then I only give you 2, you're still getting some cookie. but you're not getting nearly as much as when I broke it into only 4 pieces. Now let's do one more. We have 5/8 versus 5/10. So the first thing I'm going to do, again, is I'm going to make sure I know what I'm talking about. So 5/8 is 5 over 8, and 5/10 is 5 over 10. I'm going to draw my picture. And I'm going to break the first one into eighths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I needed a little more room. And then we'll break this one into tenths. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So on the top we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And again, they're not exactly the same size, but they're close enough to show us if the fractions are equivalent or which one is bigger. So on the first one, I'm going to color in 5 of my boxes because I have 5/8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. On the other side, I'm going to do 5/10. And so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so if we look at it, it actually does look pretty close. 5/8 versus 5/10. And that should kind of make sense. If we go back to our famous cookie, if I broke it up into 8 pieces versus 10 pieces, those are both a lot of pieces of cookie. So the size of it isn't going to change by a huge amount. But we can still clearly see that 5/8 is more than 5/10. And it should make sense. Because even though 8 and 10 are pretty close together, if I broke my cookie up into 8 pieces, there's less pieces of cookie than if I broke it up into 10. So each piece of cookie is going to be more. So these were just our first examples. Now let's try some other ways to compare fractions. All right, now we're going to do 2 more problems, but we're going to do them using some of the skills we've learned in the last lesson by making equivalent fractions. So on our first one, we have 2/5 and we have 4/9. That would be a hard couple of fractions to compare because 5 and 9 are not that close to each other. So it's hard to tell which one is bigger. But what if I changed my 2/5 to make an equivalent fraction? Because equivalent fractions are equal. Well, what if I times both sides by 2? That would equal 4 over 10. So that means that we know that 2 over 5 is equal to 4 over 10. So now we can compare 4 over 10 to 4 over 9 instead of our 2/5, because again, they're equal. They're the same. 2/5 is the same as 4/10. So whatever 4/10 is in relation to 4/9, 2/5 is going to be the same. And then there, we know that 4/9 is going to be bigger, because if you broke something up into 9 pieces and got 4 of them, or if you broke something up into 10 pieces and got 4 of them, If there's only 9, that's more. So what we did was we took 2/5, we made that 4/10, and then we solved the problem. Let's try one more. So over here we have 5/7 and 10/13. Again, that's kind of a hard one to compare. 5/7 versus 10/13 doesn't really tell me all that much. But I know that 7 times 2 is 14. And 14 is only 1 away from 13. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fraction and multiply both sides by 2. And that's going to give me 10/14. So now I don't have to compare 5/7 to 10/13. I can compare 10/14 to 10/13. And just like over here, that makes the problem a lot easier. In fact, in this case, it makes it super easy. Because if the numerators are the same, 10 versus 10, the fraction with the smallest denominator is always going to be bigger. So if the numerators are the same, the fraction with the smaller denominator is always bigger. So we have 13. That is bigger. And again, that should make sense, because the numerator is how many parts, and the bottom is the whole. And if you have more parts of less whole, that's going to be more things overall. All right, let's go do our one application problem, and then you're going to finish doing the work on your own. Now we're moving to the section where you're going to be doing some work on your own. I'm going to do one more with you, and then the rest you're going to do by yourself. Now, depending on your teacher and what class you're in, you might have a Google form, or you might have a seesaw activity. If you are using the Google form, this is the activity. If it's the seesaw activity, that's okay. Just make sure that's what you complete. So, if you're using the Google form, the first thing we'll look at is number 1, which is always your name. Make sure you put your first and last name in. Then you move on to the first real problem, number 2. Compare the fractions below using greater than, equals to, or less than. And so we have 3/4 and 3/5. Now, even if you're doing this on a computer, you can always take out a sheet of paper and do it like that on the side. So that's what I'm going to do. Just like with our application problems, I'm going to draw 2 pictures that are rectangles that are pretty much the same size. I'm going to turn one of them into fourths. And I'm going to turn the other one into fifths. And then I'm going to color them in. So this is 3/4. 1, 2, 3. And this is 3/5. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to compare, and I'm going to see that 3/4 is closer to the whole than 3/5. So I know that 3/4 is greater than 3/5, and so this would be my answer. If you are doing the seesaw activity, make sure that's what you complete. If you are doing this activity, you have questions 3, 4, and 5 for you to do all on your own. That ends our lesson for today. I hope you learned a lot.